Hi everyone, my name is Karuna Tanahashi, and today I'm going to be talking about guilty pleasures and the creative process, and the relationships between guilty pleasures and the creative process. So a question to all of you guys is, who here doesn't have a guilty pleasure? Nobody doesn't have a guilty pleasure. All right, what are some of your guilty pleasures? Just shout them out.
Justin Bieber.
Justin Bieber, awesome. Anybody else?
Ice cream.
Ice cream. Who else? Who else? Tell me about your guilty pleasures. Your deepest, darkest, dirtiest desires. Google. Ooh. So I think it's safe to say that most, if not all of us, have at least one guilty pleasure, whether it's a type of food that we like to eat, movies or TV we watch, video games, books, comics, or music, or some kind of a hobby that is unconventional or obscure. Now, what makes our guilty pleasures guilty? I have come up with several hypotheses. They are cheesy or campy. They are lowbrow or unrefined. They're frowned upon by our peers or people who we respect. Or they're out of line with what we or others think we're supposed to like, or who we or others think that we're supposed to be. So we could just say, you know, forget about it. This thing is uncool. I'm just not gonna like that. And yet we feel compelled to continually indulge our guilty pleasures because they make us genuinely happy, right? I believe that the guilt in guilty pleasures comes from two sources. First of all, there is the campy or lowbrow nature of the thing that we love itself. And this guilt is then doubled by how completely delightful it makes us feel. Because it's considered socially inappropriate to feel this sense of childlike wonderment and giddiness, whenever something makes us feel really, really good, we either scale it back, repress it completely, or keep it hidden until no one else is looking. In a way, art is like a guilty pleasure, because when we are doing something creative, we are taking time out of our busy lives to revel in the moment and live in our imaginations. This act in itself is a selfish act, and it brings us abundant joy. We do it not because we are supposed to do it, but because something inside of us that defies logic is telling us that we must. On the other hand, art is also the opposite of a guilty pleasure, because art is considered sophisticated and tasteful and generally accepted by the public, whereas guilty pleasures are not. So, granted, if you have a guilty pleasure, chances are you're not the only one, but unless you're at a convention where you know that everyone else is going to be a fan, you usually talk about your guilty pleasure with a sheepish smile and a disclaimer if you even choose to divulge it at all. I feel like art and guilty pleasures have this way of polarizing your personality. So if you like Shakespeare and Rachmaninoff, you are this type of a person, whereas if you like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you are an entirely different creature altogether. Speaking of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, as some of you may know already, I am a huge Buffy fan, and Buffy is one of my greatest guilty pleasures. I came to the show very late in the game. It first came out when I was in high school, and I'm actually Buffy's age, but I couldn't really get into it at the time. For one thing, I just didn't understand the humor at its very core at that point, and for another thing, I didn't want to like it, if for no other reason than the title alone. Like, I would have people who were avid Buffy fans saying, "Oh, watch the show," and I'd be like, it's called Buffy the Vampire Slayer. How can you possibly be so fanatical about a show called Buffy? But over the years, people kept singing its accolades and praising it, people whose opinions I really trusted. So finally I crumbled and I borrowed my friend's box DVDs, and of course I watched them back to back to back. By the end of season 1, I was intrigued. By the middle of season 2, I was in love. Every chance I would get, I would geek out with my DVDs, and it did feel silly or embarrassing, but that was between myself, my DVD player, and a small group of friends. Little did I realize that it was only a matter of time before I was going to make my guilty pleasure very, very public. Here's the story of how that happened. A couple of years ago, I was standing in line with my friend Robert Lemoyne. We were trying to get tickets to a show that happened to be guest starring Nathan Fillion. So we're standing in line, and as we're standing in line, who should I spot out of the corner of my eye but Juliet Landau? Now, for all of you non-Buffy fans, Juliet Landau plays a vampire called Drusilla, who happens to be the sexiest, craziest, darkest, awesomest female vampire on Buffy and of all time, in my book. She is also the girlfriend of Spike, who happens to be the sexiest male vampire of all time. Now, Joss Whedon has written a lot of really, really amazing characters, especially amazing supervillains, onto Buffy. Spike and Drusilla happen to be my two personal favorites. So, seeing her in such a casual situation where I really didn't expect to see her was such a trip to me, especially given the fact that I had been watching her on my little TV up until just a couple of hours before. Needless to say, I totally fangirled out. I nervously conspired with my friend Robert, and finally I found an excuse to talk to her. I introduced myself, I told her how awesome I thought she was, I asked her if she would take a photo with me, to which she kindly agreed. I think I kept my composure pretty well throughout that interaction, after which point I buckled at the knees and could barely walk or speak. So that experience really stayed with me for the next couple of weeks, and it had my mind positively racing. I thought about Juliet Landau, and I thought about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and how much I loved both of them. I was also going to a bunch of open mic and karaoke events at the time, so I had a lot of random music floating through my head, and I was thinking about wanting to write some of my own. So somewhere in that whole crazy process, I got the idea to write love songs to some villains on Buffy, or at least to Spike and Drusilla, who I was and still am genuinely in love with. But I tried to deny it for a really long time because it just seemed too silly. I mean, like, love songs to supervillains on a 90s TV show that I didn't want to like in the first place. So I just kind of repressed it, and I tried to forget about it. But I kept having this one song lyric running through my head. And finally one night I couldn't sleep because this song lyric kept going through my head. So I was like, all right, I just want to get a good night's sleep. That's all I want. I'm gonna write down this song lyric and then I'm gonna go to bed. So I wrote it down. It was for Spike, and the line was, I don't go for guys who stab their own mother with a stake, but I ache for you. So that was the start of Ballads to the Buffy Big Bads. And now I'm going to invite my friend and partner in crime, Tyler Davis, to the stage to sing that song for you.